I can never decide whether Paris is more beautiful by day or by night. Adriana. No, you can't. You couldn't pick one. I mean, I can give you a checkmate argument for each side, you know. I sometimes think, how is anyone ever going to come up with a book or a painting or a symphony or a sculpture that can compete with a great city? You can't. Because you look around and every street, every boulevard is its own special art form. And when you think that in the cold, violent, meaningless universe that Paris exists, these lights, I mean, come on, there's nothing happening on Jupiter or Neptune, but from way out in space you can see these lights, these cafes, people drinking and singing. For all we know, Paris is the hottest spot in the universe. Joe. That's it. Another rewatch of my absolute number one favourite film of all time. Today, I had a not so good day. I skipped university and wasted my morning away again. And then at work I had an argument which made me feel upset and frustrated. By the time I had reached home, I only had one thing in mind: to get this day back in the good books for me. And lo and behold, it did. I finished work and got a nice bottle of French red wine from the shops. Just a cheap bottle. Then a bit of KFC. Perfect pairing, I know. I got home, freshened up, and now it's 11:15 PM. And I got my food and drink ready. I inserted my French Blu-ray copy of Midnight in Paris into my player and turned my light off and let the film begin. Si tu vas ma mère, greeting me back to Paris like some long-lost love of the past. Seeing the shots of Paris in the day, and then dusk, and then night as the song plays from start to end. Seeing all the places in Paris one thinks of when thinking of this great city. For me, this film is everything I can ask for out of a film. My love for Paris is fulfilled by watching this film. It feels like a moment in time stopped, and this film was made. And it stands alone, and all the big named actors came together to recreate La Belle Époque, Paris in the 20s, and then moved on with their careers. This film is so special to me. There is not one single film out there that makes me feel the way this film does, and there never will be, for this film gives 110%. There is nothing else I can wish for a film to offer me. With that in mind, I should give up film watching altogether, for I know, as long as I may live, I shall never watch a film that makes me feel the way Midnight in Paris does. How does it make me feel, you may be asking yourself? Love, passion, admiration, desire, enamoured, starstruck. The list goes on and on. I can be here all night long writing about every single thing about this film and why it means so much to me. But will anyone ever read it? No. The chances of even my closest friends reading this very line is slim. So for this film, tonight, I will pour my heart out onto this screen to pay my respect to the way this film makes me feel. Let me start from the beginning, I guess. Back in 2020, my obsession with France began. I heard a French song and I loved it, played it every single day for weeks, decided to look up the translation so I understand what they are singing about. And just like that, it was born. The obsession had begun. I listened to every single song this band made and read every single lyric like the Bible. This then led me down a new path of discovering more French musicians, and this is when I discovered a musician who ultimately became the biggest inspiration and who had the biggest impact on my life, Cleo. This was like the equivalent of me discovering the Beatles, as from that moment in my life. As from that moment on, my life took a complete change. And that happened twice in my life, discovering the Beatles and discovering Cleo. These two musical figures have changed my life in ways I could never have imagined. Back to the film. I was becoming more obsessed with French media, and that's when French cinema began for me. I only recently had just begun my film collection around this time as well. So I was in the film shops like HMV and CEX, looking for new films every week. That film collection has now grown to over 500 films as of me writing this review / prose. I was in my local CEX and walked down the final aisle as I had finished paying for my film. And on the way out I caught a glimpse of a film sitting in the £1 movie section. This film was Midnight in Paris. I saw the cover, Owen Wilson walking along the River Seine. I saw the title in my head. I said, Paris, I've got to watch that, it's about Paris. Cut to next week. I buy the standard DVD copy and I go home and watch it that very same day. And I remember that moment I finished the film, I was in shock. I didn't know how to move on after that. I had the credits paused and left it like that to allow myself to think that entire story over. It instantly became my #1 favourite film of all time, instantly. A few months later, I scoured eBay for an authentic French Blu-ray copy of the film. Why didn't I just buy a standard UK Blu-ray, you may be asking yourself? I just wanted something that was from France. And to own my favourite film in a French pressing was what I wanted. I found a copy and brought it. It came from Paris of all places. I still have the parcel that it was shipped in under my bed, for I couldn't bear myself to part with it. This is something no film has ever made me do. I love Cinema Paradiso. It's on my #1 list and I own it on 4K. And same with American Graffiti, that's on my #1. And I own that in a special 4K Steelbook edition. But my standard copy of Midnight in Paris is a whole other world. There are people who dislike this film, hate it even. One of them is in my year at university. But this is the beauty of cinema, the fact that one person loves a film and another hates it. This is the equilibrium of cinema, at least to me. To me, Paris in the 1920s is the golden age. It's Paris's golden age. Hemingway, Stein, Picasso, Dali, Brunel, the Fitzgeralds, Porter, Barnes, etc, etc, etc. This is it, the lost generation at play. The artists and the writers who flocked to Paris in the 1920s and made something for themselves. This fills me with such a deep sadness just thinking about it, knowing it doesn't exist and they aren't here today writing and painting and talking and drinking in the greatest city in the world. Knowing I will never get to experience this moment in time means a great deal to me, a 23-year-old nobody in the middle of England. This moment in time is possibly my favourite time in human history. Sure, the 60s were our race because of the Beatles, and the 70s and 80s would have been unreal to live through, but for me, they still don't come close to 1920s Paris. I resonate with this bit of dialogue so deeply that when I heard it in this rewatch, I just was bewildered by it. It fits. Nostalgia is denial of the painful present. Paul. Oh wow, Jill is a complete romantic. I mean, he would be more than happy living in a complete state of perpetual denial. Inez. Really? Carol. And the name for this fallacy is called Golden Age Thinking. Paul. Touche, Inez. Yes, the erroneous notion that a different time period is better than the one one's living in. It's a flaw in the romantic imagination of those people who find it difficult to cope with the present. Paul. Golden Age thinking. To think that this is very much a real thing is something that stops me in my tracks. The fact that the present day might seem terrible and boring, but in the future this will be seen as better by some people. The same way there are people today who believe life was better in the 70s. Go back to the 70s and ask them what they think. They'll say no, back in the 20s was far better, and in the 20s they'll say no, the 1870s was better. Nostalgia is denial of the painful present. Yeah, that tracks. I hear this and it fills my head with 1,000 images. People who find it difficult to cope in the present and believe life would have been better in the past, without question. I see it. This film to me is far more than just a moving picture with a time-travelling character. It's a symbol of something more. It makes me think. It takes me to a place I never want to leave. Never, ever. It means so much. I can't explain just how much. To help you understand how much it means to me, because of my admiration for this city, I decided to bike to Paris from my house in the middle of England. 1 week of wild camping and 16 hours on the bike per day to reach this city. It was a pilgrimage for me. I really had to deserve to belong there. Not just catch the first flight there, no. I had to first earn it by sheer sacrifice and dedication alone. A true adventure and journey to arrive in Paris 1 week later as a new man. I walked in Montmartre alone on my final day in Paris, and I had Parle-moi d'amour by Lucien Boyer on repeat for 4 hours as I lapped Montmartre again and again and again. It was the greatest night of my life, for that was the first time I felt I had truly lived. It was the greatest feeling in the world. I have experienced real love and deep admiration for another person once in my life, and that was a very special part of my life, but I hold that night in Montmartre above anything I've ever done in my life ever. I did not want to leave, for I know the moment I left Montmartre and got back to my hotel and put my head on my pillow, I would wake up, leave and get the plane back home, leaving this place behind me. It felt like I was experiencing a heartbreak, a breakup. It was painful leaving. I wasn't crying or anything, but I had a strong sense of sadness inside me, and that feeling remained for a good week. It didn't want to leave me, and I didn't want it to leave me. So you might watch this film and think nothing of it. It's just another mediocre film with good actors in it, and move on to the next film, leaving this one in the dust. But to me, this film completes me. I love other films, and I have about 9 films in my number 1 list of all time. But you take any of those films and tell me to put them head to head, I can pretty much guarantee that Midnight in Paris will be the victor. This film makes me feel a way I've never felt before. It shows me what I want in my life, what matters to me the most in the world. You can call me stupid or brush off this as some rose-tinted glasses take on a film, but this film allows me to feel like I did that night in Montmartre again. It shows me the time that Paris was exciting and alive. Sure, it's alive today, but it will be tomorrow, and 30 years from now, and 100 years from now. But the way Paris is today is a whole different world to what it was during the 1920s. The way of life back then was slower, people seemed to care more, and it was prettier. I haven't really spoken about the actual film itself, but just know I love it. The actors are amazing, huge names in this film. It's such a star-studded cast. Woody Allen made one hell of a movie here for sure. If there is anything you take from this prose, just know that this film means everything to me, for it takes me to a place I wish I never left. I get to see the writers I read, Hemingway and Stein. I have 3 copies of Ernest Hemingway's Unmovable Feast, his memoir of his life in Paris. I read it, and fell in love with it. It is just the greatest time ever. Art at its true finest. True art at its peak. Hemingway working with Gertrude Stein, Picasso painting in the opposite room, Scott Fitzgerald reading a book in the parlour with a glass of wine on the side. It's something I will never get to experience in this life, but you best believe I'll be there in the next. I will be there in my next place. Paris in the 1920s, Stein's open house bustling with artists of all kinds, at all hours of the day. Bars open 24/7, never more than a 5-minute walk away from a cinema. Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton being shown every day to brighten up the lives of all the people. Just writing about it makes me so sad knowing that it's all gone, never to return again. The door to Gertrude Stein's open house closed for the very last time. Hemingway left Paris and went back to the States. Same with the Fitzgeralds, bringing an end to the lost generation, an end to my golden age of Paris, my Belle Epoque, my beautiful era. To close this message off, I just want to end this showing you how each of the people in this film died and when. This shows the slow fall of the lost generation. All of these people are in Midnight in Paris. They existed in real Paris in the 1920s, and they came together to create art, feeding off of one another. As all great things have to come to an end eventually, even the greatest period in mankind's history has to come to an end. This is how it happened. 1. Scott Fitzgerald, 1940, heart attack at 44. 2. Gertrude Stein, 1946, stomach cancer. 3. Zelda Fitzgerald, 1948, tragically in a fire at a hospital. 4. Ernest Hemingway, 1961, suicide. 5. Juan Belmonte, 1962, suicide. 6. Cole Porter, 1964, kidney failure after years of illness. 7. T.S. Eliot, 1965. 8. Alice B. Tolkien, 1967, aged 89, peacefully. 9. Josephine Baker, 1975, stroke, just days after a comeback show in Paris. 10. Pablo Picasso, 1973, heart failure at 91. 11. Man Ray, 1976, lung infection. 12. Juna Barnes, 1982, lived nearly 90 years in solitude in New York. 13. Louis Brunel, 1983, cancer. 14. Salvador Dali, 1989, heart failure in his hometown of Figueres. Now you read that list and picture them all dying off one by one as time passes. Each time another dies, it's another nail in the coffin that is the lost generation, the beautiful era. That's life though. We will also come to the same fate as those 14 people. We will all one day cease to exist. I look at that list of people and it pains me to think that that is the end of that time in Paris. With Scott's early death in 1940 to Dali in 1989, it concludes one of the most profound, inspirational and creative moments in human history. The end to Paris in the 1920s. God bless those cobblestone streets of Montmartre and all the artists that have called Paris home, the peak of life on earth for all mankind, for me. Thanks for reading this message about my love for Midnight in Paris and the city itself. I love them both greatly. That's what the present is. It's a little unsatisfying because life is unsatisfying. Jill.